The film begins with a haute cuisine scene. Christian is grilling meat. He carefully divides the resulting dish into portions. He puts one beautifully on a plate and pours the other into an iron bowl, which he places on the floor and calls to Frank, a man in a dog suit who crawls on all fours and eats on the floor. Over dinner, Christian scrolls through Tinder. Having noticed Sigrid, the man puts a like, immediately indicating serious intentions and financial solvency. Later, the man washes Frank, who has skinned him, and brushes his teeth. Lying in bed, Christian says it's time to sleep and the dog obediently moves to the floor. But before falling asleep, the man writes hello to the girl he likes. In the morning, Christian has breakfast and feeds Frank dog food, simultaneously starting a correspondence with Sigrid. While doing morning exercises, the guy does not forget to write messages from time to time, and in the end the girl offers to meet. Christian carefully dresses up in a formal suit and goes on a date, not forgetting to ask Frank's opinion about how he looks. At the appointed place, the guy pours beer on his nerves instead of pineapple juice, as if he doesn't believe that something will burn out. Having finished his glass, he is about to leave when Sigrid finally appears, a short girl in sweatpants. Having ordered more beer, the girl talks with the guy, occasionally being distracted by the phone. It turns out that she is studying to become a psychologist at a private school. During the conversation, evening imperceptibly comes and Christian offers to go to his house. Having agreed, Sigrid is surprised by the huge house and rich decoration. Christian offers to drink wine, simultaneously telling him that he lives alone. Of all the living creatures in the house, there is only a dog. Frank carefully spies on them, but does not stick his head out from the other room. The owner says that he received the house as an inheritance from the dead parents. The conversation smoothly flows into kisses, and they, in turn, led the young people into the bedroom, where Frank continues to watch them. Waking up in the morning, Sigrid notices a man in a dog suit sitting on the floor, acting like an animal. At breakfast, the girl continues to watch Frank, whom Christian calls his pet. Deciding that her student knowledge of psychology is not enough to clear up such a mess in her head, Sigrid leaves. Christian tries to explain himself, but the girl is frightened by the breed of cockroaches in his head. She asks for a ride home, which the guy obediently does, apologizing along the way for not clearing everything up right away. In the apartment, Sigrid tells her neighbor about the last date, even shows a photo of Christina. It turns out that he is a rich man who inherited his father's millions. A friend convinces Sigrid that it is wrong to abandon such a promising lover for the sake of eccentric antics. Together they watch videos about playing puppy, when one person pretends to be a dog and the second is its owner. Having assessed the prospects, the girl prepares to write to Christian, but he calls first. Christian apologizes for not saying anything right away. Sigrid admits that she also reacted sharply. The eccentricity of millionaires is different from the madness of marginalized people. They agree on dinner the next day. In the morning at school, upcoming plans are not get out of Sigrid's head, preventing her from delving into the wisdom from books. In the evening they again meet with Christian. The girl carefully starts a conversation about Frank in order to understand what to deal with. According to the guy, Frank is his old friend, who has no one else, and when he decided to consider himself a dog, Christian could not refuse him, playing along with his self-identification. To get to know Frank better, the girl pats him like a real dog. He tries to play with her too persistently, which scares the guest. Christina has to raise her voice and drive the dog away. Later, sitting on the veranda, the guy admits that he hasn't had real friends since childhood. Everyone talked to him because he had the best toys and supplies of sweets. Frank was the only one who truly wanted to be his friend. Waking up in bed this morning, Christina Sigrid receives breakfast and an apology from Frank for yesterday's behavior. Young woman is late for class and her boyfriend gives her a ride to school. During lunch break, Sigrid meets her neighbor. She, having learned that her friend has seduced the rich man, immediately gives instructions to show that she is a person and is not as accessible as he would like. Returning to Christian's house, Sigrid tries to pretend that she is not like that and needs to go home, but she succumbs to the millionaire's charm and again spends the night with him. Lying in bed, she offers to help Frank with normal socialization. For example, find him a girlfriend. In response, Christian invites the girl to go together to a country house for the weekend to take a break from the city and get some fresh air. She happily agrees, and so the three of them with Frank cross the threshold of a house somewhere in the deep forests. Christian decides that now is the time to tell them that there is only one bedroom in the house, so the dog will sleep with them. Sigrid agrees, dumbfounded, but it's just a joke. During lunch, the girl periodically looks at her phone, which the owner doesn't like very much. Christian suggests taking a digital detox over the weekend and putting away your cell phones for a couple of days. Reluctantly, the guest agrees and hands over the device. The guy takes the box deeper into the house without telling the girl exactly where. In the evening, she plays with Frank while Christian drinks wine on the sofa. The girl's attention eventually turns to the guy. The soul requires a holiday, and the body requires debauchery. To satisfy the guest's requests, Christian leaves for a second bottle of wine. At this moment, Frank pulls the dog mask off his face and warns Sigrid in a human voice that Christine is dangerous and she needs to run away. Sudden revelations build on previous fears, skillfully smoothed over by the millionaire's charm. All the romantic mood is gone and the girl says that she is tired and wants to sleep. Waking up in the morning, the first thing she does is quietly sneak to the first floor. However, the front door is locked. Sigrid is rummaging through the pockets of the jackets that hang nearby, but then appears an awakened Christian who is curious what is she doing. The girl says that she wanted to get some fresh air, but the door is locked. The guy accompanies her outside, admitting that he always locks the door at night. Admiring the scenery, Sigrid asks him to give him a second set of house keys so that he doesn't have to wake him up every morning, but Kristen only has one copy. From the stress she has experienced makes her feel sick. She doesn't eat anything at breakfast. A bite won't go down her throat. Sigrid asks the guy to return the phone to call his mother, who is supposedly sick. Christian agrees and brings the phone, but does not leave. Sigrid has to dial her mother's number to talk on speakerphone and she says that she is fine. After the conversation, the guy accuses her of being dependent on the phone and takes the device back. Sigrid offers to take Frank for a walk while Christian figures out what they'll do after lunch. While walking, she asks the dog what happened. Frank is afraid that the owner is eavesdropping, but says that he is a psychopath and it is not so easy to escape from him. His plan is to attack Kristen while he is sleeping. The girl refuses, but upon returning to the house, she takes advantage of the moment and hides the kitchen knife under the pillow. Christian almost catches her doing this. He wants to change his underwear. Fearing that he will find the knife, Sigrid decides to take on this responsibility. The guy is not too happy with this idea, but gives in to persuasion. The nervous girl is taking a shower when Christian knocks on the door and says that they need to discuss something. He waits for her in the bedroom, where he asks with a serious and dissatisfied face what is wrong with the bed. The girl denies everything to the last, and Christian menacingly reports that the linen is not laid out neatly enough, but he is only joking. Although Sigrid is not laughing at all, suddenly the guy's libido kicks in and he starts kissing the girl. However, she has no time for lust now. She pushes away Christian so that he falls. The guy silently gets up and goes to the kitchen. At dinner they eat in silence when Sigrid becomes sleepy. The girl wants to go up to the bedroom, but her legs give way and she almost falls unconscious. Christian manages to catch her. Waking up before dawn, the girl puts her hand under the pillow, but the hidden knife is not there. Christian wakes up next to him and tells him to follow him. He wants to show something. The guy acts cold and distant. He asks Sigrid if she knows what it's for. They arrived at this secluded house. Christian then plays a recording of a conversation in which Frank convinces the girl to attack at him at night. Immediately, the man takes out a knife from the drawer, which Sigrid hid under the pillow. "I'm very disappointed," Christian says to the frightened girl. He takes her to the back room, where Frank is languishing in a cage. Christian admits that he doesn't need to record the conversation. The faithful dog admitted it almost immediately. Having removed the lock from the cage, Christian takes off the pet's mask and strokes it, but Frank suddenly bites his owner's hand. Having escaped from the cage, the dog attacks Kristen, but he still defeats him in the fight and almost strangles him. Taking advantage of the commotion, Sigrid grabs the house keys and runs away. When Christian notices her escape, he becomes enraged and drags Frank on a leash into the barn. There the psychopath begins to torture him, puts a gag in his mouth, covers his eyes with a blindfold, and covers his ears with headphones. Christian pours water over the pat, then puts a plastic bag over his head and removes it when Frank nearly loses consciousness from lack of oxygen. Then the sadist puts the victim in a cage and places powerful speakers on the sides. Putting on noise-cancelling headphones, Christian turns up the music at full blast. Grabbing a baseball bat, the man attacks the cage with it, simultaneously making Frank bark like a good dog. But this is not enough for him. Having pulled out the victim, the maniac puts him on his knees, takes off his pants and spanks him on his bare butt. At this time, the escaped Sigrid, realizing that topographical cretinism will not allow her to get out of the forest, grabs stick and returns to the house. She hears a noise in the barn and finds Christian mocking Frank. Taking advantage of the fact that he doesn't hear anything, the girl sneaks up on him and hits him on the head with a stick. While Christian is lying in a pool of blood, he picks up Frank and wants to take him away, but the sadistic millionaire did not pass out with one blow. He grabs his bat and immediately hammers one simple wisdom into the girl's head. The enemy must be finished off, otherwise he will get up. When Sigrid falls unconscious, Christian sinks to the floor next to him and begins to sob loudly. In the next scene, Christian is cooking breakfast again. He pours food into a bowl and goes down to the cage in the hallway. After spitting in the food, he unlocks the cage and places the bowl inside. Having waited for the command, Frank begins to eat. Christian goes to the barn with another bowl. There, captive Sigrid languishes on a leash in a dog costume. The girl shows devotion and obedience with all her appearance. Christian says that he will soon allow her to sleep in the house, after which he returns to the kitchen. He fills another bowl with food and places it on the floor. Then he unlocks the lock of the other cage. "It's time for breakfast, son," Christian says, and timid baby steps can be heard behind the scenes.